Before we get started on this episode, I just want to let you know this episode is brought to you by Bennett Carroll. And in all of my years of real estate experience, I'm yet to see a lawyer's firm, a conveyancing firm, that've got a vested interest in helping you keep your deals, actually keep them together. And so I've known this company for about 10 years now. I first met Guy Gibbons, the head of this company, back when I was listing and selling real estate. And I tell you, these guys will actually fight to keep your deal together. And they have put together a family membership program for you that I've never seen. So let me just make sure I don't leave anything out here. So first off, if you join at realestaterenegades.com and find the link to the Real Estate Renegades family, you're going to see that they've got a deal for Bennett Carroll. You're going to see a inquire here. So you just push that button to join our little family. They're going to give you free lawyers online. There's a hotline that when you join this little family, and it's free, you'll be able to click a button and on call get free legal advice. That way, when you're out in the field, you won't have someone say, oh, let me just ask a lawyer. You'll be able to go, bup, 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 there you go, ask whatever you want. They'll be able to give you free behind-the-scenes legal advice through their on-call legal service hotline. They're going to, and this is the thing that I love, save you a bunch of time, all for free on your admin. Meaning, when you become a member of the family, you're just going to send them an email with the listing. They're going to do a free title search. They're going to do a free preparation of your contract and send you your contracts with the owner's name, all of the details, all fully filled out with the searches fully legally done. Not going to cost you a penny. How awesome is that? Just they're wanting to be part of the Real Estate Renegades family, and they are giving you the offer to end all offers by becoming a member. It's completely free, all brought to you by Real Estate Renegades, Bennett Carroll. Go to realestaterenegades.com.au, find the family link where you click there, join the family, won't cost you a penny, and have all of those benefits of free legal advice, free contract preparation, saving you on time, saving you on admin, and actually having a legal firm. If you choose to use them, and there's no obligation, but if you choose to use them, you're going to have a legal firm that's actually in the business of keeping your deals together. So that's Guy Gibbons and the team at Bennett Carroll Solicitors. Australia-wide, find that link now at the realestaterenegades.com website. And before we get started on this week's episode, I just want to let you know this week's episode is also brought to you by Agent Prospecting. So yes, that is a company that I'm involved with. We're literally a team of telemarketers, Facebook advertisers, and other lead generation specialists have been personally trained by me to do your prospecting for you. So for less than the cost of a PA that you're going to have to train to do it the way that I suggest you would do anyway, for less than the cost of that, significantly less, you can have fully trained people, trained by me, employed by me, where Agent Prospecting pays your Facebook bill, pays your telemarketing bill, pays the wages bill, pays everything, all in one, handing you 20 to 25 appraisal leads a month. Agentprospecting.com.au. Head there now. And remember, before we get started, just helping to pay the bills and things, even though these should be considered gifts, not sponsors. And you know, you always have podcasts that sponsors kind of get on there and plug their stuff. Well, all of these guys are in the business of adding something to your world. A lot of the times these family members are offering you gifts, are offering you freebies, are offering you value far in excess of anything they are charging. So check out these guys, give them your time, because believe me, they aren't just normally like normal people having a pitch at your expense. All of these guys I've personally vetted. Check them out, and we'll see you on the episode. Another repeat visitor to our little coaching world, none other than the best in the last decade, and this is James Tostevin, arguably in many people's estimation, the finest real estate agent that Australia has ever produced. Certainly when it comes to results, he has been number one consecutively for more years than any other real estate agent in the 21st century. So when we get to pick his brain on the subject of mindset in dealing with a market that ain't exactly as flourishing as what it is, when he's still finding a way to flourish, when he gives us some advice on how to flourish in a market that is not the way that it once was, well, here's where you get the best of the best from the master himself. So listen up, this is James Tostevin. You want the normal real estate training you've been told a million times? Make cold calls, knock on doors. best be switching off now, because in this podcast we go out of the box using unknown tactics, primarily that the real estate industry's never heard of, in order to get you called in more often, convert those listings, and get more success without the painful cold calling. Listen up, we're in for a ride. This is Real Estate Renegades. I'm here with the best that there ever has been, James Tostevin. Sir, thank you so much, mate.
Thanks, Glenn. I appreciate the chance to share a few thoughts with you today.
Mate, I appreciate you being here, mate. Yeah. Before we get into some of that stuff, do you get embarrassed when idiots like me are so respectful of it, or do you take it in stride? How does that
well, it's a nice compliment that anyone thinks well of my abilities, or looks for some of the younger agents that possibly look up to me in terms of what I've achieved. But certainly I try not to let those things go to my head in any way, shape or form, because I always think back to my rather humble upbringing, and I always joke about the fact I was no star at school, and I think of the steps I took along the way, and I was no overnight success either. It took me sort of 8 or 9 years before I gained real traction in the industry. So the biggest legacy I want to leave the industry in Marshall White is just, I guess, fast tracking the success of young people and inexperienced people. You don't have to be young to be inexperienced. So that's a really important thing to me. And if they get some brilliant ideas from some of the things that I've done over my career that do shortcut that success, and that's really a great compliment in itself. So when people reach out, where they text me, email and say, can I have some advice or this or that, again, it's a great compliment when they do that. So no, it's great, it's fantastic, but it doesn't change who I am and my personality. I honestly just charge on and do, I guess, and go about what I would normally do to achieve the success I do.
No, it has been inspirational from us, and we don't have to be that young to be a fan of yours and look up to what you've done, mate. So our guys are going through a tough time in the marketplace, and in 3 odd decades, you've seen all of those sorts of markets. I'd love to pick your brain a little bit about what we can do moving forward. I spoke to our mutual friend Matt Steinwade recently about those first few years in his career, and he speaks about them in a similar way that you did, that literally it took him some 10 years, he describes, before he starts hitting his numbers. Tell us a little bit about those first, say, 5 in yours, where you weren't hitting you weren't coming out of the womb doing these sorts of numbers.
I think for me, Glenn, there were a few key things. I certainly used to, at that point in time, and I still make a lot of phone calls, but I made, in those days, were more cold calls, and there really weren't people I knew that well. So, for example, buyers lists from campaigns, old campaigns, and then people that left the agencies that I work with, there was some old data there which no one was picking up and running with. So at that point in time, I made more phone calls than any other person that I work with at the time in the office and the companies I work with. So that was something that I guess I disciplined myself early on to do. And part of it then was finding buyers, and even Marcus Ciminello, who you saw this morning, Marcus always talks about buyers refer sellers as well as sellers referring sellers. And I think as agents, when the market's flying along, there's this sense that we'll just focus on prospective sellers, because they're the ones where we get listings and they mean a lot more to us financially. So going back to those first 5 years, when you really are getting going in the industry and you're building up your database, unless you really have a database of about 500 people, I think it's a challenging business. And from 500 you need to get to 750 and 750 to 1,000 pretty quickly. So for me it was a lot of that. I did a lot more letter dropping than, well, I haven't done letter dropping for years, but farm areas and territories that, again, we were really, it's not something I focus on nowadays, but again, the team do. But I just went to auctions of my competitors. I'd go to open for inspections of my competitors. I look at some of the disciplines I had then, which are just as important now, to look at a minimum of 2 up to 4 properties a week. And if I could look at more, great, of other agents' listings. It gave me a feel for values, what was on display at the open for inspections, who was in attendance, as in seniority of the agents, were they younger agents, or because often the senior guys had promised they were going to be involved. I wanted to see if they were actually there. So all those things gave me a real perspective and a sense of, I guess, knowledge that I didn't have at that point. And I also asked a lot of questions of agents I work with. So yes, there was mentoring to a point, but it was more take something, hopefully a few things, from every different agent I work with at the time. Of course, I'd sift through a few things and think that doesn't suit my market or my personality, but I really tried to take the best of what those agents did at that point in time. So that was, I guess, that was some of the things that had a profound impact on what I was capable of doing. But even sales training, Glenn, in those days, with the companies I work with, and this was back in 88, I got into sales. It wasn't until I think about 94 or 5 when I went to the first training seminar John McGrath did, that I'd ever been to. And I thought, how long has this been going on?
So you were going for
no training.
7 or 8 years.
No training.
Literally just observing.
Just observing, learning, and sure the directors at the time were helpful, and the different salespeople I worked with, again, some more helpful than others, but there was no training, no seminars, no courses, no ARIC, no training that different agents did that helped those salespeople fast track their success and their knowledge. The RAOV did some courses, but again, I think, I've got to be careful to be respectful. They were
30 years ago, mate.
They were relatively weak in terms of substance, and I think, look, you learn something along the way from any seminar you go to. But I've never been a believer that if you go to a seminar, you pick up 1 or 2 good ideas, it's been worthwhile. I always think if you go along and listen to a Matt Steinway, myself, or Marcus, or whoever, or Josh Fegan, if you don't have the ability to pick up 10 or 15 things or more from that one speaker, you haven't been listening. So that's what I tried really hard to do. And I'll never forget John McGrath saying at that first conference, a lot of people aim at nothing in life and have a high success rate. It always stuck with me. So I didn't want to be one of those people. I didn't want to aim at nothing. I wanted to have a higher success rate. I wanted to list more properties. And again, I was taught early on in my career that if I could list, I would sell the bulk of what I listed. As obvious as that sounded, as opposed to relying on pushing buyers around from listing to listing. I might get a few sales here and there, but the reality, there was also some luck involved with referring the right buyer at the right time, beating the other agent who was managing it, who had the best 60, 70, 80 buyers coming through that property. Play the percentages. Again, I was taught that early on. Another one of my directors early on said, make the next phone call the one that's most likely to make you money. That was a great lesson, because the key 2 words there are most likely. I didn't know for sure if I was to ring that person whether they would definitely be doing something, but it was all about priority and who was the most important person to ring at that time. So that's a bit of a snapshot, but I think I did come into a marketplace when I got into sales that was a very, very challenging market. So I learned
mid-90s or early.
Also that late 80s to mid-90s, certainly the Melbourne market was tough. Late 80s.
I remember I was an owner of a home at that time. I just bought a house with drunken casino winnings, I must admit. I did want to get back to the casino, so I bought a house, and it stayed flat for a decade plus. So I imagine now, because I wasn't in real estate, I didn't know anything. Looking back on that period, I can see why some of the guys who were in the game at that time look back on that as a tough market.
Definitely. I think we had, in terms of listing opportunities, your strike rate's always important, but the strike rate then was critical because you didn't get to go for that many listings where you just had to get the bulk of what you were going for. But as a young agent, there was some bruises along the way. I mean, I think as a young man, I was taught again early on, and I really taught myself as well, to make sure I asked the right questions when I got a listing or missed a listing. A lot of agents, Glenn, will say, okay, if I missed a listing, I want to know what I could have done differently. But again, it's how you ask the question. I always say, Glenn, you're not going to upset me. You're not going to offend me. I've got a thick skin. Please be very blunt with me as to why you've ultimately appointed another agent. I want to know why. I mean, I want to learn from that. But when you miss a listing, that's one thing. When you gain a listing, and I've beaten our best 2 or 3 competitors, what ultimately led that client to appoint me, I still ask that question. And yes, I deal with a different personality next time, but ultimately there's got to be 2 or 3 or 4 key things that have helped that person say, do you know what? I've gone with Marshall White, and now I've been at Marshall White 15 years, but I'm running with James for these reasons. This appealed to me about your presentation. You did, pre-listing kit, I think every agent does a pre-listing kit, and if they don't do a pre-listing kit of sorts, then they don't belong in the industry. You have to do something, but it's more the type of information you get. Ours is more submission style. It's quite detailed. So that information, when it goes to a client in advance of an appointment, again, it's important. But in those days, Glenn, there was no such thing. No, we didn't even do a confirming letter for an appointment. But again, no one had taught us those things. So I think John McGrath, who has been phenomenal for our industry, and a lot of the American speakers at those first few
the great Bob Wolf. I just caught up with him recently.
Yeah,
what
Bob
an
Wolf.
icon.
Yeah, he is.
He speaks so highly of you, mate.
Well, he's my favourite real estate speaker ever. He's a legend, as we both know. But those American speakers really opened up our eyes as to what was achievable. So that made a big difference too.
Yeah, no, it's and I look to all of you guys because now it's almost, we are a little bit spoiled now. Because what you didn't have at all, it's almost like every weekend there's someone that you can go.
You're right. There are lots of options, and I think then it's a matter of saying who do I feel. The thing that annoys me, and I'm sure it's annoyed you over the years, where it's so many people go to a conference. It doesn't matter if it's ARIC or my own one I did recently, which we called EMRIC, the Melbourne Real Estate Conference, which we did a week and a bit ago. They go along, Glenn, thinking they're going to like every speaker. Well, you didn't get much from those couple of speakers. Well, you can't get something from every speaker. Well, that's impossible in my mind. Even with the very best conferences you've been to, I've been to, there'll always be a speaker or two where you think, well, weren't a strong speaker, or I didn't gain much. And Leanne Howard, who's done again so much for the industry, used to run ARIC for years, and Leanne's such a lovely person. But Leanne used to say to me, as you gain knowledge and you get more experienced, you will pick up less with the conferences you go to. But I think it always sends a message too, that when I go to conferences, it sends a message to my own team, to the broader Marshall White team, that we can all still get better. I can still get better. I can still be a stronger real estate agent, a more complete real estate agent. So that's why I do those things. So that's a critical thing. We talk about the first 5 years. You've just got to do a huge amount of training. And at the moment, there are agents saying, I can't afford to go to that conference. This is the time where they should go to their parents, whoever, to say, look, I need some money. It's going to have a huge impact on my career. I have to go to this conference. It's $300, it's $400. I've got to be there. Because you and I both know that's, if they listen to the right speakers, it could have a profound impact on what they're capable of doing.
Well, I look at what, my journey started as a seminar, we won't say a junkie, but I went to a lot. And it was when a speaker asked me, what would your goals be if you weren't afraid? And I'm so glad he worded it that way, because it allowed me for the first time to ever set a goal that I truly would have set if I really had the safety of that. You weren't afraid. And that's what it was. I wrote that down. And bloody hell, man, it happened within a couple of years. So
no, it's amazing, isn't it? Well, I think, as we know, if you write something down, you're committing in your mind to it. That's what I want to at least, if not achieve, aim to achieve.
Have it in the...
Well, it's like I say to a salesperson, you've got a monthly goal of sales listings, whatever your target is, gross business. If you get there in the first 8, 10, 12 days consistently, clearly the bar's not being set high enough. If you rarely make it, then maybe you're setting the bar a little bit too high. And clearly agents have had to adjust their thought processes and what they're aiming to write because of what the market has done in most states of Australia in 2018 and so far in 2019. But as I said, I learnt in that marketplace. So, and I think our younger people, I think of my son Charlie, who said to me recently, I'm not defeated by the market at all. I know this is a learning phase for me. He's been in the industry 4 years. He's 26 years of age. He said, I'm not defeated by it. And he said, the lessons I'm learning and the things I'm doing along the way will set me up perfectly when the market does turn and things are stronger again. I'm in a brilliant position to really, knock it out of the park, or words of that effect. He'll be really successful. He obviously still wants things to happen in the meantime, but it's all about building blocks. If you can put those in place at the moment, and it's like salespeople, Glenn, when they look at prospecting calls, they might say, look, if I'm totally honest with myself, I make 30, 40, 50 phone calls a week. Let's say, look at 40. It's 8 a day. 8 a day. It's pathetic.
What are we going to do?
Absolutely pathetic.
What do we do after 9 o'clock?
That's just not good enough, And if someone says, okay, well, I'm used to doing 60, 70, 80, I'll try and get to 100, you've got to set a new bar. You've got to get to another level again and say, okay, I might have done this previously, but I'm going to get from 70, 80 to 120. I'm going to go from 90, 100 to 130, 140. It might be a 30, 40% increase on what they've been doing previously. So you say it in raw numbers and you go, another 30 phone calls, 40 phone calls, not that many, but it's a big increase, really, if you're doing it each week. And as you know, Glenn, the other thing that salespeople do is they typically make a lot of phone calls, get a few listings, and think, now we need to focus on selling them. Their prospecting falls away. So I talk about the ripple effect, the minor changes to what you're capable of doing. Very rarely does a salesperson achieve that. More often than not, as you say, it's this huge up and down because they get the listings and focus on selling them. And they stop prospecting. They stop doing these nurture calls where I don't ever stop doing nurture calls. I consistently make 200 plus a week, and our team are expected to make a minimum, and I say minimum of 100, but I want that to be a minimum. I want them to be more 120, 130, 140, 150 to get to, and again, it then comes back to what they're saying during these phone calls. So all of these things that we're talking about, I mean, they're things that a lot of agents know, and they think, well, I know I should be making more nurture calls, but I think of someone I appraised 3-4 weeks ago with Charlie. I first appraised it in 1988. The next time I appraised it was 2019. So 31 years between appraisals, but I kept in touch with her. When I walked in with Charlie, and she was aware, Charlie was my It was my son. She said, well, Charlie, you weren't even born when your dad first came to our property. So that again sends a message to someone that, and she said, James, if we do anything, it will be with you. So it doesn't mean every person's going to say that, but you're trying to build up as much loyalty as you can.
The most likely thing.
Most likely scenario. And the other thing, Glenn, is I have a head start. Even if I do compete against a couple of other companies, I'm still in a really strong position.
Yeah, wow. Well, it sounds like even some of those words you were saying a moment ago that Charlie's coming out with, mate, that's wisdom well beyond a 26-year-old.
But as he said to someone the other day, they said, how long have you been in real estate? He said 26 and a half years, because that's when he was born 26 and a half years ago. And he wasn't being smart saying it. The reality is he's been around it all his life. And the amount of conversations he's listened to in the car over the years, sadly, when we're speaking to buyers and vendors and they get to observe, and he's the only one of my 6 children that's ended up in real estate, and probably realistically the only one that will. But it's good, and it's not just him. I think there's a number of other young women and young men, and as I said, inexperienced people that have come to our agency, that have hopefully come to my conferences and where I've been speaking at seminars, and they've said that system or that tactic or that procedure, that script, that really appeals to me, and I can use that in my business, and I can immediately apply that to what I'm doing day to day, because that's the appeal of my training. And when I do speak at the conference early April, as you know, I'm not asking people to do things I did 5, 10, 20 years ago. I'm encouraging them to do things that I do now. Today. Like they'll be doing this afternoon, they'll be doing tonight, they'll be doing tomorrow. This week, next week, etc. So again, I hope that's appealing to people. They're not listening to someone who did it 10, 20 years ago. This is what I used to do. That's what I'm doing now.
I've seen a bit of that, and look, I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to do my bit and do what I can do well. But I definitely like for my audience for them to know that make sure when someone is sharing with you some strategies that it isn't what they were doing back in 2009 that stopped working for whatever the case may be. It's got to be stuff that's applicable today. That's what I love about you, mate. Is I sat in the room with you for like half a day, and and with Chris Gilmer and I learning, from yourself, watching you do exactly what you preach from stage. It's exactly.
Well, it's critical. I think for years, let's face it, whether it be what we used to use years ago with the carbonised buyer sheets through the iPads now and have for a while, but the qualification of buyers, I still think has been, let's just say, I'll probably use a kind word, agents have done it spasmodically, they've done it inconsistently. They've done, a lot of agents were known to stand there with a, smile, invite them into their home, introduce themselves, some basic things, but did they have really good product knowledge of what's happening in the area? Did they have really good knowledge about the property they were selling? Did they ask excellent qualification or excellent qualifying questions, so they knew the buyer's capabilities, what they'd bid on, what they'd offered on privately, even if it was through another agent? Ask the right questions, get information that you can use with your vendors when it comes to educating them about the true value of their property. So that's critical, and I think that's been lacking in our industry with a lot of the agents. And the second part of that is, of course, the discussion. So many agents, as you know, Glenn, will say, look, I'll leave the hard discussion for another day. We just need to stay positive and hang in there, it'll come good. Well, we know it's a harder market, so we need to be realistic with our vendors. We owe it to our vendors. If you have a slow start day one and you don't get enough people through the open for inspections, we need to be proactive. Maybe it's more marketing, maybe it's changing the price range, maybe it's changing the copy. There's a number of things you can do to reignite the campaign. And I think as agents, we're too quick to sit back and thinking, we'll just leave it another week or so. Let's just see if that has an impact. Just time. It may have an impact. You might have met the buyer on that first weekend, but I still think it's really important to be proactive. Just increase the buyer pool or the number of buyers coming through that property, and as many listings as you can, and that just makes it easy to sell them, challenging market or otherwise.
So given it is challenging in many states, certainly here in Victoria and Sydney, certainly very much so, but they say in WA half the industry has already either left or are sitting there. They shouldn't be in the game because they don't meet the legal requirements, earnings-wise. If we are in a tougher market, what are some of the things we can do on a day-to-day basis to keep us literally going? Because I've seen you disciplined yourself and literally do it every day, even though it may be the same thing you've been doing for 20 years. What are some of the things you have to tell yourself so that you can do it? Or are you robotic in that? Or do you have moments of saying, I could not be asked?
I think any human being that said, I have such high motivation every day of my life, that wouldn't be believable to the people that are watching this discussion or this interview. I think for me, sure, there's the odd day, but I joke it's one day a quarter, Glenn. It's not very often where I'll think, oh God, another 200 phone calls for the week. Great. But I'm human, so there's going to be days where you think, sure, there's going to be the odd moment where I think, here we go again. But I also look at what I would generally produce from those 200 phone calls in terms of activity, appraisals. It's amazing when you get talking to people how often people have said over the years, I was talking to you, I was talking about you last night, I was talking to my husband about you last week, we're thinking of giving you a call. I won't even bore everyone with how often that's happened over the years. But it's not just ringing people, it's ringing people at the right time, because that's a skill in itself. So yeah, there are days like that, but there's not many, thankfully, because I love what I do. So I don't find it a challenging thing. Each day I walk into the office, I'm excited to be here. Now, I'm just as excited to be on holidays when I'm on holidays. But when I'm at work, I'm absolutely focused on work. I'm very energetic about what I do. And I just see the results that come from my phone calls. Now, of course, the results aren't happening, and well, certainly not quite the level that it was because of what the market's been doing. I have a number of people saying to me, I'm just going to wait till the market improves. So it depends on their situation. We all know to talk to them about buying and selling on the same market. But even if someone sold in Victoria at the moment and then waited for 6 months or a year and a half or 2 years, and rented, they wouldn't necessarily disadvantage themselves. So it's not, if they had sold and got a price they were really happy with, that's still very much a positive thing. So I hope I've answered the question. Yeah, sure, there's days like that, but there's not too many. I said, I get so much enjoyment out of what I do. I love speaking with people. So it's not a difficult thing for me to do. But obviously the bulk of people are great, but you're always going to find a few people that are not as friendly as you'd like them to be, and some are a bit rude, but there's not many. And thankfully now, of course, over the years, a lot of these calls are warmer phone calls. I know them, they've got some recognition immediately. A lot of people, of course, have got my numbers in their phone. So they'll say, hi, James, straight away. Yeah. So yeah, that's good.
I had some mouse pads printed up, so I'm constantly reminding people on their mouse pad, and it says you can click from place to place, but you can never forget face to face.
Yep.
Do you think in today's day and age where we're all within arm's length of a mobile device, that is a lost art amongst our industry?
No, it's a brilliant point, Glenn. I don't think enough agents actually think of that. And it's fine to email and it's fine to text and all of that's great, and even ring people. And that direct contact's still good, because it's like when you ring you ring a bank or you ring the local council and you get shifted around from person to person. You think, all I want is to speak to the person that can help me. Yeah. So if they can shortcut that, and that's something I've never delegated, then I think that's invaluable. And I do rely very much on that personal contact, as you know. But equally, I'll say to our team that if you can get in front of that person, even if they're not selling yet, even if it's just an update, even if they're not selling for 6 months, 2 years, 5 years or longer, I get some people saying I'm going to be carried out in a box. I'm not moving. Now, if that happens, in that situation, if I have 20 minutes, half an hour with them, just giving them a quick update on the market, the value of their property, that 20 minutes or half an hour is worth, it's impossible to calculate, but it's worth more than 8, 10, 12, maybe more phone calls, because that direct contact that you've had with them, the ability to build rapport and chat to them, and not just chat real estate, chat about life in general, family, what they've been up to. Those things are invaluable in my opinion. So yeah, I agree. It's absolutely a lost art, because I think there's a lot of agents out there that think mass emails is enough, and even text messages, as good as they are, it's a bit more personal than an email. But I rely heavily on that direct contact, personal contact.
Yeah, certainly. And the way, are you still doing the same sort of thing for someone who is going to say, right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it James's way. I've heard the legends, now I'm going to do it. I loved the way you could utilise a staff member to take up some of that time so you could get more done. And if you just give us a quick run through, if someone's committed to it and someone's got an affordable, maybe even a part-time person, to almost like that person becomes your keyboard. How is that?
Yeah, no, that's important. I mean, I said to someone just recently, Saturday, they were asking me about putting on someone because they were getting to the point where they couldn't cope with their workload. And I said, well, look, and they were talking about part-time. And there's nothing wrong with that person that they bring into the business working part-time. But There's always that old saying, got to be careful you don't have a part-time employee, a part-time attitude, was something I was taught a long time ago. So I did run with a full-time person originally when I put someone on. Of course, there was a fear there when I first did it, Glenn. I'm thinking, God, I hope I can justify this. I hope I can write enough business to pay effectively for the wage. But once you build momentum and you suddenly think, I don't have to do buyer inquiries and file inspections and building inspections and some of the things, private appointments, you go out to a property from our office and spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes getting there, half an hour there. Buyer says, look, they walk out and say, Glenn, look, thanks anyway. No, it's not for me. Like saying, could you work that out in the first 5 minutes? And then you go 10, 15 minutes back to the office, there's an hour, maybe 45 minutes, but there's a lot of time absorbed with a private appointment. So if I didn't have to do those things, which I clearly didn't need to do it allowed me to focus more on the listings, and I was doing everything I possibly could to get listings. So sure, it has a huge impact on any person, but it's amazing, again, we talk about ripple or this, where people will cope to a point, and I'll say, look, I nearly got to the point where I put someone on, decided I didn't need to do it because I just got on top of things. But if you're at that point, you should be putting someone on. You should be doing it. And as to the perfect fit, I think an admin-based person with the ability to do a little bit of selling, help with open for inspections, certainly do some private appointments, that's the perfect person in my mind. Might be all admin for some people, but I think a little bit of selling doesn't hurt, especially private appointments. And for us, we need to have a second person to open for inspections. Now, my team now is big enough to cope with that. But if people are listening to this discussion that your interview and I are having, they need to think, well, I haven't got anyone. It's just me.
Who's my first?
Who's my first? Which path do I head down? And that great Bob Wolf Turkish proverb, no matter how far I've travelled down the wrong road, turn back. So agents have said to me, Glenn, I gave that a go once. Once? Why didn't you try it again? I put on the wrong person.
It doesn't mean you're not going to get married again, you know, whatever.
So why wouldn't you get another person? Okay, it didn't work with that male or that female agent who was either inexperienced or experienced, because a lot of agents, as you know, they won't delegate properly. They won't give that person responsibility. Or they think by the time they've explained something to that younger person, they could have done it themselves. But they don't have to explain it once. And if the person responds well, they shouldn't be told a second, third, sixth, eighth time. They'll do it next time. You only have to explain it once. But yes, it takes some time for that person to learn. Once they've learned, and you get someone who's valuable, pay them enough. That's the other huge thing in our industry. To retain them, because you think to retrain, to go and find someone else, it's insane. Yeah, plenty of agents do that, Glenn, as you know. Get the right person, pay them over really what they should be paid out there in the market. Where they say, gee, if I was to leave, my income would decrease. Gee, it would be a risk to leave. You know, I'm big on, I think one of the most valuable things you can give any team member is some time off, whether it be an afternoon off, whether it be the occasional day off. I'm not good with sickies, Glenn. I don't like people taking, now when I say if they're sick, they're genuinely sick, that's fine. I don't like the days when they're not really sick and they call in and then say they're sick. So that's why I give my admin and EA, my admin marketing girls, the odd day off, so they don't think about those sickies as often. And on a Friday, I rotate things where my EA finishes at 2, the 2 marketing girls finish at 2 and 3 respectively. Again, it works incredibly well. So whereas some agents and even our company, the girls work till 6, you don't leave at 5:45, 10 to 6, you work till 6. It's not the way I operate. So bonuses, again, really looking after your team, you know, those things again are critical, because you want that person to come in saying, I love working with Glenn, I love working with James, I want to be here, you know. So I think that's important too.
And sometimes those intangibles, I've just started a young a school leaver, first year out of school, real smart, don't tell him that, but real smart. And I just think, because he was considering doing a marketing degree, and yet, you know, I just wonder, when he's live in the trenches watching this stuff happening from 17, imagine if we knew this stuff.
I know.
You know?
We're exposed to it.
Wow.
I think that's what we tried. You know, we do training every morning 8 till 9, and then I do a script session between 1 and 2 on a Wednesday afternoon. Now, that's not compulsory, but the people that come to that training, they're obviously trying to, again, get some ideas to overcome objections, whether it be with a buyer, prospective buyer, whether it be in a listing situation. How can they strengthen their position when they're going for these opportunities? Because you know what most agents do? They practice on real people with real money at stake.
Costing you 10 grand a pop if you get it wrong.
It's expensive. It could be more. So you know that's important too.
Wow.
So,
yes. I know. I'm stoked for what these guys are going to get from yourself at the upcoming thing, the upcoming day. So, What are some of the highlights you're able to transfer in a day with James? Because I'm so pumped about the fact that they're not just going to get James's keynote lessons of whatever topic it might be that you might do in an hour and a half, but a day hanging with you. What can the guys expect and look forward to?
Oh, well, I think then I'm able to, I talk quickly, Glenn, as you know, but I'm able to slow down and more methodically work through a lot of the systems and structures that have worked incredibly well for me. I do try to make it as interactive as possible. Obviously, with a big conference group, it's difficult, of course, to have questions being asked from the floor. So that's one thing I think people have always responded to positively as well. But it's probably the ability to go, each topic I talk about, whether it be prospecting, whether it be things that people might say, well, I know how to go about prospecting nurture calls, or I know how to list, and then I burrow down a bit more, talk about strike rates and talk about different things they're doing. I think, well, no, you're not actually strong enough at listing. You might think you are. Mentors, a lot of agents don't have mentors, but I talk about, again, benefits of that. Time management's one of the greatest weaknesses of real estate agents, but again, that's something that I spend time on. And I believe, I'm faster professionally at what I did 10 years ago, 5 years ago, a year ago, 6 months ago, a month ago. I'm always looking at different ways to get, to be quicker at what I do professionally. It allows me to get more out of a day and more out of a week. So, look, there's a range of things. I think we talked about being current before. They get to hear from someone who's enjoying current success, but I'm doing things that I think are very, very effective in the current market, but very effective also in a more challenging market. So there's there's a range of things, but I'll be able to give them some insights where I think being able to go through it more deliberately doesn't mean I won't talk quickly still, but where I methodically work through a few things where I think they feel there's more opportunity to absorb the information that's coming at them. And again, it's actionable, things. And team structures is another thing I'll obviously cover as to how I got going, how I'm currently structured, and just the different things that I feel make people want to be loyal to not just the agency, but who they're actually aligned to, who they're working alongside.
Yeah, wow. Matt and I were talking the other day because I know you and Matt have been mutual friends and respected. Both. Yeah. I've never seen any pair of guys at the top of their game respect each other more than yourself.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal agent.
I'm not sure if you're aware, but this last year he didn't even tell me this, but a 10-year goal of getting McGrath's #1, 5 million with a team of 8 or 9 people. So he's really mastered those art of delegating with all of those things.
Oh, he's a brilliant operator. I mean, I appreciate there's other agents in Terrigal, but when I say he owns Terrigal, I mean, he's such a dominant and influential person in that market. Yeah. The one thing I need to work hard with Matt is taking more holidays, but you probably know that. I've spoken to him about that. He doesn't take nearly enough time off, but at the same time, he's just geared that way, as Jamie would say, and has said to me before, that's the way he operates best, and if that works well for him, that's great. But I take a lot of holidays, so I do that in sharp contrast to what Matt does, but that's not to diminish his efforts and his abilities as an agent in any way, shape or form, because the fact that he can stay up and motivated, and he's a very fit man, fitter probably frankly than you and I, Glenn, incredibly fit.
I've dropped a few kilos, mate, well, because of him, I watch what he does.
Incredible. No, he's a machine. So it's brilliant. And so, look, I have nothing but admiration for him, but I always hope, and I'm sure that people listening to this interview would also want to get a sense that you don't have to work 7 till 7 or 7 till 8 or 7 till 9 to be successful. Yes, there's a period that you have to work really hard, but also it's critical to take time off. And Dr. Fred Gross always talks about the big rocks, and the big rock for me was always, I put my holidays in place at the start of the year, something I learned from an early Eric with him. So that's something that's really important to me. I take 11 weeks holiday a year. Now, before everyone thinks, that's the best idea.
There's the secret.
Yeah, that's the best idea about the last 45 minutes. They've got to roll a lot of commission to justify taking 11 weeks holiday. But 4 weeks in the middle of the year, 4 weeks at Christmas, week and a half at Easter, week and a half September. So it's all perfectly worked out for me. But I've got some real structure around what I do. And again, that's definitely something I'll share with people on the Friday. That not just time management, how I'm able to fit so much into a given day and a given week and a given month. Because that's, a lot of people ask me that question, Glenn. How do you juggle? Yes, with my 6 children I've got, and Jack's nearly 3, the older 5 are 23 to 28. And so that's easier now than it used to be. But I was still in the industry when they were young. I had 5 under 6. So people would say to me, how did you juggle being a dad, being a great dad, being as hands-on as he could be, having a reasonable amount of time off and still being successful? So that's often questions are asked about that. And also when you do get busy and you become more successful and you do list more properties, how do you fit everything in? How do you still fit in 200 prospecting nurture calls. Again, these are things I'll cover, but these are all the things I tend to get asked about when I'm talking about real estate. So.
Yeah. Is this market, if it is tougher, is this the time when we're metaphorically in the gym? Is this the time when we're building that resilience?
So well, a little bit like Charlie's attitude. If I put the groundwork in, and that great saying, again, I heard years ago at a conference, the wider the base, the higher the pinnacle. So that always appealed to me, because the more foundation you put in place in terms of your prospecting nurture calls, and it depends what works for different agents. Marcus, as he would have shared with you, doesn't do prospecting nurture calls. That's not the way his business is geared. But as you know, he's incredibly successful. So it doesn't mean every agent has to do that in their marketplace. It just depends. Some agents you just know. I look at someone like a Matt Lancashire and I think, my God, he just owns that market.
Yeah.
Press agent of the market, anything riverfront. If I think riverfront in Brisbane, I just think of his name.
Yeah.
First and foremost. Yeah. That's what I'd be thinking. If I was thinking in our marketplace, you go into the different suburbs throughout Melbourne, who do I think is the preeminent agent in that area? And normally it's through a combination of their listing capabilities, but they're also very good, as you know, at promoting themselves. It might be social media, but it might be a whole lot of other ways of promoting themselves that have made them the authority in that marketplace, And in our market, we've got a very competitive market, and I appreciate anyone that works in real estate will think they've got a very competitive market, but the skill set of the agents we compete against are pretty impressive. So, that's something we deal with every day of our lives. So.
Yeah, I remember when we first spoke, I remember thinking of, and it might not have even been face-to-face, it might have been in a training, but the way you spoke about your competitors, it reminded me of Michael Jordan when he brought in his most hated competitors, sat them in the front row at the Hall of Fame induction and personally thanked them for what they made him become.
No, well, he's the ultimate freak in every respect, professionally and professionally, and he's the financial success. I was reading an article about him recently.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, I have, and probably at times in the past, regrettably, I was probably a little bit too direct with my competitive nature when I talk about it being good if you didn't like your competitors. What I meant was the determination to be successful and want to win. So if I sit in someone's living room or family room for an hour and a half, I want to win. This attitude, if I get it, that's great. If I don't, it's not the end of the world. Well, it's not the end of the world, but I don't want to sit with someone for that period of time and not get the listing. Yeah. So I'm friendly with a number of my competitors, but at the same time, of course, there's some that you enjoy beating more than others, if I was totally honest. But there's always going to be moments where you think, again, the results speak for themselves. If you're successful and you get the bulk of what you go for in terms of listings, well, again, your name's out there, not just on the internet, but in the print media. You've got a visible presence. The marketplace can see how successful you are. It's not just competitor agents. I get people that say, James, I want you to come and talk to me about my home because you're selling something very similar to my property. Well, that's what you want to happen. You want the phone to ring because that success feeds other on success. So that's what's important. So, but yeah, I've learned some fantastic things, and that's why when I have missed or gained a listing, I've learned plenty from my competitors. So that's important too.
If someone was to go to the website, see you, Matt Steinway, and a whole bunch of other number one performers, number one bloke in Remax. We've got some absolute icons of the game. Phil Harris, we're still trying to work his schedule out, but Phil's looking like he's coming. Vivian Yap, just the best of the country's ever produced. And they sort of go, oh yeah, there's enough trainings out there, don't need to go. What would your response be to that person?
Well, if you're talking about that calibre of agent, Glenn, I'd say if you don't make it a priority, and I made that comment earlier where agents say, things are tightened up. I haven't got the spare cash I did have, 6, 12 months ago, 18 months ago. So look, I'll pass over the conference on this occasion. I might go to the one next year. But you're missing an incredibly valuable opportunity to learn from some incredibly skilled agents that are successful in any market. It doesn't matter if it's a challenging market or a market that's flying along. I just say, are you really serious about real estate? Do you really want to get better? Because the opportunity is there to learn from some of the best, as you said, best agents in Australia. And that was what my conference was about recently too, Glenn. It was local content. It was Australian speakers, and they could apply it to their marketplaces. So I think it's a huge opportunity, and it's worth the investment, because that's what it is. It's not a cost. It's cliche, but it's true. It's an investment in them getting to another level. That's why they should be going.
Yeah, so. No, agreed, mate. It's been an honour to have you guys let me even be a part of it. Because I was an adequate, slightly above average real estate agent, but it was this sort of seminar that made me live the life of my dreams. You know what I mean?
No, same here. I mean, I think if you look back to what I used to aspire to earning, which is irrelevant because I don't want to insult anyone that is earning that, but this is when I was a very young man, but I was thinking, God, that'd be a lot of money. But as you've just said, the money, as you know, is unlimited if you're good enough. There's no cap on what you can earn. And I like the financial, again, words that we hear lots of time, freedom and flexibility of choice around what you want to do, whether it be holidays, car you drive, lifestyle you lead. It's not important to everyone, but it's important to me. That's what helps to motivate me to get out of bed in the morning. But number one's family. You know, I think back, which I always talk about in training, to some of the highlights of my life, the time I've spent with family on holidays, not just my kids, my family. So, and going to the Super Bowl once 3 years ago, going with Charlie and Ed, my twins, next January, Feb in Miami. Those sort of things are, again, the reason I work hard.
Yeah.
You go to a conference like this, those things are possible. Well, more is possible, as opposed to, I'm happy driving a car that's 15, 20 years old. I'm happy not having a holiday this year. They're not really happy not to have a holiday, Glenn. They want to go on holiday.
Just willing to not. Yeah.
That's right. As opposed to, I want to be able to do that. I want the choice. So to me, it's a pretty simple choice. So.
It's been a career that we've looked at with in some cases envy, or everything you've done, mate. It's inspired an entire country of real estate agents, mate. So on behalf of them, I just want to thank you, bud. Yeah, no,
thanks, Glenn. I appreciate the chance to have our discussion today, and I hope the interview is what people, it gives them a sense of what is going to, be in store on April 3rd and April 4th.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun, mate. So once again,
4th, 5th, beg your pardon. 4th and 5th. Don't turn up on the wrong day. Anyway.
No, it's going to have a blast. So thanks again for being a part of it, mate. It's,
okay, good on you.
Dream for us. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right, guys. The great man, James Tostevin. Thank you for watching in Facebook Live. Thanks for hanging. And until next time, folks, we'll see you at the event. Bye for now.
And remember, this episode was brought to you by agentprospecting.com.au. That's where our team of telemarketers, Facebook lead generation specialists, and other lead generation specialists in your area, we will do your prospecting for you, all bundled into one price. So there'll be no telemarketing wages, no Facebook wages, no Facebook bill. It's all covered by the one low cost of less than one wage of a PA, fully trained by me, generating for you 20 to 30 appraisals a month, all for the one low cost and less than the cost of one employee. So head to agentprospecting.com.au for this one. We'll see you on the next episode of Real Estate Renegades. Bye for now.
Wow. Well, there you go. I hope you liked the episode. If you liked that, then what you need to do is you need to subscribe. You need to get more of this craziness, because we got more are coming. I'm never standing still, and we've got so many more guests. We've got so many more strategies, more out-of-the-box thinking. So if you haven't subscribed, literally, you're like throwing away thousands of dollars. Because I tell you, if you haven't subscribed, you don't come back. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to find you, I'm going to market to you, and I'm going to charge you for the very stuff that on this podcast we give away for free. So whack that subscribe button on whatever your favourite podcast weapon of destruction is, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.